welcome to a very, very windy gardening 365. This is the start of Storm Ellen. Okay, and today we're going to get a lot of rain, I believe. Okay, so make sure you're safe. Okay, and enjoy the video. Just come back from the run now. Walked into the greenhouse. I was going to make a video about something else, but this is even more important, so I'm going to show you this. Bear with me. I saw on our site recently that somebody had toad lilies, and I loved the look of them, so I bought a couple, and they arrived earlier in the week, and I've unpacked them, put them in some soil, and I'll put them in the ground later next year. But put them in pots meanwhile, put them in the greenhouse, and guess what's happened? One's come out in flower. Ain't that just superb? Now, what I was telling you about, I've been out for a run. I used to run half marathons and stuff like that. I don't run that sort of distance these days or anything like that sort of speed. So it's just about preservation. Okay, and that's really the stage that we are in our gardening season at the moment. We're about preserving what we've got. Maybe pickling, jam making, freezing and that sort of type stuff. And I want you to get actively involved in doing that sort of stuff and sharing that stuff on the site, because that really helps everybody to see the new ideas, just like I've done with the toad lilies. I've seen somebody else doing it. I thought it was absolutely incredible, and now I've got my own flowering toad lilies. Perfect. I'm just going to show you one more thing before I turn the camera off. Bear with me. I bought some bay leaves recently, but why not if you can get access to bay leaves? Try some yourselves and they'll store all year, and it's that sort of thing. And right next to them, again preserving, we've got our onions preserving, so we hopefully got onions to Christmas and beyond. That's the stuff I'm talking about. And just in the background, some of our poppy seeds. Already we're thinking of next year. But don't forget, this year, enjoy your harvests, and we're looking forward to them. Had quite a few red ones now, and we're not buying any tomatoes obviously now. And the lettuce that I was struggling with, they're only a week or two away and we'll have lettuce as well. And again, some more follow on from there. And again, talking of follow on, these are our tomatoes, our follow on tomatoes, and I'm hoping to put these in the ground with some heating in the greenhouse later in the year. Will I get tomatoes off these? I haven't got a clue. But keep watching the 365 videos. You'll see either major disaster, wow, 5 or 6 seeds gone to waste, or you'll see great success, me eating fresh tomatoes in the winter. Wouldn't that be great? And I know it's really windy, so I'll bring the camera really close to my face to do this one. I'm now going out on a little mission. On the run, I saw something that I'm going to go and take a few seeds from and a few cuttings from. It's one of my favourite things. Okay, and very shortly I'm going to show you what it is. Those little babies are sloes, and it's not them that I'm looking for at the moment. Something very similar though, and that's it, wild damsons. Okay, they are lovely, different to normal damsons because they're circular and not oval like normal damsons. I'm going to pick those, keep the stones, and I'm going to take a few little cuttings as well. Mission accomplished. Got 5 stones and some greenery. And you'll see what we're going to do with that shortly. The stones we'll put in the kitchen window just to dry out a little bit, and then we will plant them in the winter, ready for growth hopefully in the next summer. And it's certainly not morning. What I've come out to do is just trim the cherry tree and plum trees a little bit. This is this tree's first time fruiting this year, so I'm just going to nip the little ends off, and it needs to be pruned now, well before the frost, so the wounds heal before the winter comes in. So I'm just going to nip the ends off. You probably won't even see the difference when I've done it. What I'm going to do is nip this just right above where the bud is, and off it comes. and that's how I'm going to nip it off. That's it, that's all I've taken off. It really is not a great amount at all. And apple trees, we'll do them after we've picked the fruit off them, so not yet. Now earlier in the video I showed you some of the sloes that I saw when we was out on a walk. Believe it or not, they're only about 100 foot below us on level. And the difference is, look at ours, ours are all green, and yet those were black. And that's the difference what 100 foot in altitude makes. Absolutely incredible. But crop, we are way ahead of them, because that is some absolutely awesome crop. Birds will have a few, but there's plenty left for us. What I'm going to do now is get Claire to show you how we string our onions up so they're best for storing. Okay, now you'll see some green on them. Ideally you could do with them all sort of dried out completely. Okay, but we're going to try and string them anyway. So I'll show you step by step how we're going to do it. So we've got a piece of string hanging up. Claire takes the first onion, folds it over and twists it around. Don't worry about the tops being on them, we'll show you what we'll do with them later. Take the next onion, and as always the first one's usually the hardest. The onion goes in, twists around, make sure they're nice and tight, and then press it down. Ready for the third one. Twisting around every single time. And from there, just continue. As you're going, just take off the roots. Remember we said previously when you dry them, leave the roots on for as long as you can. At this stage now the roots can come off. And hopefully you'll have onions, as long as you don't use them all too quickly, right into next year. The speed we use onions, we'll probably have onions for the next 2 or 3 weeks. The idea is definitely to get them completely dried out before you do this bit that we're doing now. The greenhouse is definitely one of the best places to do it. Let's just take the tops off, and at that stage then I'll start adding more onions on top of the string from there. Just got to be careful, because they will create quite a weight, and make sure where you're suspending them from is strong enough for that. From there, just start adding more to the pile. Remember, all of these onions you're seeing are from one pack of onion sets. We've used quite a lot already as well. I wonder how many curries these are going to make. Yuck. And talking of curries, these are our chilies. Now, although a lot of people are saying that chilies are not ripening and stuff like that, ours are only just starting to flower at the moment. So don't worry if they're a little bit late. You've got all the way through to September and beyond for them to do that. Now, what am I going to be doing today? I'm taking the barrow and I'm going to go and get some stone to add to the new splash pool that we put in. Just want to put a few more stone in that and put a bit more green to it. So you'll see me doing that shortly. Ooh, a bit bumpy there, sorry. Now for my next little job with the stones, I'm going to use some of this stuff. Now what it's called, I haven't got a clue, but it's really useful. I'll show you a couple of applications I've used it for previously. You've all seen my blueberries before, but what we did, we put some of this stuff on the top just to cover it up a little bit. Why? I don't really know, just to make it look nice, and it does look good. Okay, and if I run short of it today, I'll come and grab some of that as well. And round our fish pond, we put some here. It grows really quick when it gets going, and it just hid some of the pipes that was down there. It looks great now. And there's another view of it from the top of the pond. As I say, it still looks really good, I think, all the way down here to the ends. So what it does is it's good at hiding things. If anybody knows what it is, please put a comment or post on here, and maybe at some point next year I'll have enough that if anybody wants any of this stuff to hide some nasties in your garden, give us a shout and I'm sure I'll have some for you. The local ones. I can't post it overseas and stuff like that because that's not allowed. At the pond, and I've just noticed there's some lilies that's starting to rot, so what I'll do later on, if I remember, I'll come up and nip them off. You don't want plants decaying in the bottom of your pond. Okay, so I'll tidy that up a bit. And all I've done is literally put some of that green stuff in between the stones. Hopefully that'll grow over these bigger stones, and it just sort of looks really natural. Now what I never do, because it's a spreading plant, is use all of it and then you've got none left. So what I've done is just broke it up a little bit, the bits that I've got left, so hopefully it'll spread out. I've put it around in about 4 or 5 different places, and when we finish with the blueberry for this year, I'm going to pull all of that stuff out and bring some of that stuff down here as well. Spoke a couple of weeks on the poll of the week, what's your favourite garden tool? I've got to be honest, my very favourite garden tool is my gardening knife. Good quality knife. It's made by a company called Sloe. Now, I'm no snob when it comes to gardening, but I will say stuff like Sloe, Spear and Jackson, and some of the others offer guarantees on their products, and I think there's a 5-year guarantee on that knife. So if I break it in 5 years, they will replace it, and I think it goes as much as about 15 years for a spade and a fork. So you can really hammer your tools when you need to, and know if you do break them, you get a free one. Okay, so good quality tools if you can afford it. If not, just use whatever you can. About 6 or 8 weeks ago, I started a little compost bin project off, just to show you guys how easy it was to make compost. Looking in here now, that's how it looks. Okay, and if I start to break the soil up, which is going to be difficult with one hand, but I'll give it a go. Already you can see a little worm here. Houdini duck might want that. Get it? Look. No, don't want it. Okay, and if I just break it up, you'll see how well it's all broken down. That's 6-8 weeks worth of decomposition. So you could have that sort of compost. All you need is a little bin about as big as that, some old grass clippings, some cardboard, and anything else you got to see either green or brown, and you can enjoy the delights of composting. Houdini loves compost. I wonder why. And Spud loves the Kong. I wonder why. Morning. Okay, and hopefully we're on the better weather now, following Storm Francis. Okay, and what I'm doing today, I'm just preparing some soil to put out, and the wind, you can still hear that. I'm preparing some soil so that we can grow some courgettes in the greenhouse when the weather starts to cool down and the frosts are here. Courgettes are not frost hardy, so any courgettes you got, if they're still outside, you will lose them as soon as we start getting frosts. So what I'm doing now is trying to grow on, okay, and get some of these courgettes in pots so we can move them into the greenhouse before the frost comes. I'll show you how I'm going to be doing it. I've got soil, and if you notice there's squitch grass in there and there's some big stones, so I'm taking out the good soil away from the squitch grass and away from the stones. Breaking it up, taking all the squitch grass out and removing the stones. The tubs or pots that you use must have holes in them for drainage. Don't use anything that hasn't got holes in the bottom. So try and find them if you can. And believe it or not, this is another one of the refuge recycling bins that I'm going to reuse again for some another purpose. any stones that you find can go in the bottom to help with drainage. And like I've said before, nothing goes to waste. But maybe one thing might be wasted, because there's always a risk putting that in your compost bin if you can't get it rotted up. And at this time of the year, compost bins will cool down and maybe that won't rot, and you're going to reintroduce that to your garden. So today I'm going to throw those in the bin. And all the broken soil has been put into a place now. I can mix it up with some peat pre-compost. So I'm going to mix that up, and that's going to be my soil mix. Mixed up, and now into the bin to grow. Now that courgette is what's called root bound. The plant is too big for the size pot it's in, so now putting it into the bigger pot bed, it'll now grow on really well. When you're filling up, I always put the pot in, so when you take the pot out, there's a perfect size hole for the new plant to go into. Pop it in, and jobs are good. Just put it in, and now a decision time to make. It could go in the greenhouse, but space in the greenhouse at the moment is a real premium. Okay, because we're drying the onions, the tomatoes, got everything else. Even over here, everything's full up. Now I can leave it outside. A couple of problems. One, is it going to be too cold at night? And at the moment, no it isn't, but that's something you've got to monitor. And the other problem is that wretched wind we got up here. So at the moment, what we're going to do is just test the wind. And I'm not sure how well this will film, but what I'm going to do is throw some grass up in the air. I'm going to check which direction the wind's coming from. You've got to wait a little bit until the wind does blow. But trust me, it is blowing at the moment. So here it comes, and the wind goes that direction. So I know that direction is south. So at the moment we've got a southerly wind. So just behind me there is the greenhouse. So if I put this side of the greenhouse, it should be sheltered pretty much from the wind, and that's something you've got to be aware of, the wind, especially if you're living at altitude like us. So exposed to the southerly wind, and protected from the southerly wind. You can still see it moving a little bit. It is windy, but I'll protect it as much as possible. I'm just going to water now, and I'm using water out of the greenhouse, so it's all ready to temperature of what it should be. So we're not in direct sunlight, so I'm just going to give it a good soak. And obviously I'll monitor now, does it need watering, what's the wind like, and when it does get a little bit colder, this little baby's coming inside, and we're going to be having courgettes right into the autumn and maybe the early winter as well. And what are these? They're lettuce. Yes, I know they're lettuce, but they are root bound lettuce. So what can I do to prevent that or help that, make it better? Okay, they need to be planted into a bigger pot or planted out, and I'm going to have a look at if there's anywhere I can plant any of these out, anywhere, because they will grow very quickly, so you can put them in between longer growing plants. I just found a space big enough for about 4 of the lettuce, and it's right next to my early potatoes. Now I've got to be honest, the potatoes this year, it's the first time I've grown them in a raised bed in anger, okay, and they've been an absolute success. Those are the end of my earlies, so once those are out, that'll be it. But I've got all of these follow on later potatoes still to harvest at some point. We're still doing plant of the week. It will get more difficult as we go, because obviously people aren't growing things like they were. But I'm hoping potatoes will be the plant of the week this week. We've still got plenty, and they look good at the moment. You can just try them, see if they fit in there. As I say, about 4. And they're looking like cost lettuce at the moment. They're not. They are Webb's Wonderful. Okay, and the reason why they're looking like cost lettuce, they've been in the greenhouse for too long, and the greenhouse has pulled them up. So out here now they should grow and mature properly. So I'll let you know how we get on with these. Just found this little beauty, a dragonfly. and unfortunately the cat caught it, so it's a bit stressed out at the moment, but hopefully it's getting its mojo back and it will fly again very shortly. Aren't they beautiful? And that looks ideal for the last couple of lettuce to go in. That was the pod that we used for growing the garlic, but it was a total and utter disaster this year. So hopefully it'll bear some fruit, that pod, and it'll grow us some lettuce. There are loads of runners of this year's strawberries as well, so I'm going to be potting some more of those up. By the way, the ones on previous videos have all done really well, 100% success rate. If you look here, what I've done, there's the runner. And what I've done is put some soil over the runner, and now that's a plant in its own entity, and so is that one there. So what you can do, just get some snips, snip them off, and they become their own plant. Both in. The ground there is really wet, so I'm not going to water them in at all, and a little bit of the wall, I'll protect them from that southwesterly wind for a while, but the wind will change direction, I promise you. Now I don't think I'll be ever buying any of these again, plastic pots, so just look after what you've got. So what I'm going to do is put them with the others, and then as the frost come, just before the frost come, I'm going to get them inside so that they don't age hard in the winter. Now I need an extra pot to put some potatoes in, and the wormery that I created early in the year, I'm going to take the top level off there. Now that wormery has made worm tea all through the summer, which we've used on our houseplants, and the houseplants have done really well from it. But now it's time to say farewell to the top level. Okay, we're going to put it back down to 4 levels, back down to 3 levels, not 4. And what to do from the compost, from the wormery, put it back into your main compost. That was level 4, which is supposed to have the least amount of worms in, and there they are, still doing their job. And that compost is about 3-4 months old. Okay, so by the time next year, that'll be as good as shop bought compost. Here we go, the 4 potatoes that I put aside when I was planting my potatoes to grow on later in the year. Here they are. I'm going to take one of them today, I'm going to cut it in half, and I'm going to cut one other in half so that the joint heals up a little bit. So hopefully we'll have 4 pots of potatoes. And the reason why I'm not putting them all in at the same time, I want to stagger the growth. 4 potatoes, 1 each week, 1 month staggering your potatoes. Even at this time of year, I'm going to stagger. So there they are. Will this experiment work? I haven't got a clue. But if I don't try it, I'll never know. So very shortly, I'm just going to cover the surface of them, and then nothing gets wasted this house. I'm going to put a little bit of that compost from the wormery on top of them, and then the following week I'll put a bit more soil on and just continue the process. Just come back to the courgette, and already we've had a duck that's been rooting in there. Don't think it'll cause any harm at all. There's my potatoes, or potatoes. And just water to get those potatoes started. Okay, so that's one. What I've done, next week I'll do another, and so on and so on. And I've got one more courgette to put out, but I'm not going to put that yet, just trying to stagger them as much as possible. When I cleaned out my pond the other week, I dug a lot of these out. Okay, and this is just the soil straight out the pond. Now it's not good soil, and it's perfect for growing pond plants. So what I'm going to do, I want to control them. So I'm going to put them in a pond pot, but I've just got to shape them a little bit to get them in. So that's what I'm going to do now, try and shape them to get them in that pot, and then I can control them and stop that rapid growth. Managed to get it in. Unfortunately I was a bit rough with it and split the little pond basket a little bit. Now I said before about plastic age hardening, it's when it goes brittle over a number of years. That pot I believe is approximately 40 years old, so it's done okay. So I'm going to go and now put that now in the splash pond that I made the other week. Gardening Crocs, aka driving Crocs. And the reason why I went out with Crocs and socks on in the car, first of all, I didn't realise, Claire pointed out, it might be illegal to do that, just like flip-flops. The reason why I did go out is we managed to pick up some roadkill. Now, it's not in great condition, but I've set up the wildlife camera, and hopefully now we'll get some wildlife camera footage of the rabbit as it is, well, being eaten. Okay, so we'll keep you informed on that over the next few days. Okay, and while we're out here, it is raining, it's horrible. Okay, Gardening 365 isn't just about gardening, it's about what you do and what I do in your garden. Okay, so it could be anything. It could be the birds and the trees, I don't know, your patio, what you do on that, all sorts of different things. But I've got to be honest, at the moment, my garden is wet and horrible, and I'm going back inside. So enjoy your weekend. See you soon. The things I do out in the garden, it is horrible. Just taking the ladder back in now.